what I want to do now is go to, for us to both think about and look at where he was, the building and the water system. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I can show you, I have here a schematic plan of the water services in the building.
Sure.
Nightingale Ward on that plan, where is it?
It's on the ground floor.
So Nightingale Ward's on the ground floor, which this one here.
Yep.
Okay. And there are how many floors above it?
3 floors above it.
And they're wards or whatever,
yeah.
theatres or something.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And the top floor, above the wards and the theatres,
is a plant room.
The plant room where
that's where actually the cold water storage tanks are located there.
Yeah.
So it's a boosted system, water from the mains into the cold water storage tanks in the plant room. We've
so
also
it's pumped up to the top. Yeah.
That's right, and we've also got calorifiers, which are essentially the water heaters that supply hot water.
There's 2, is there? I think on the plan.
There are 2.
2 calorifiers. Okay. So it's a simple enough system, isn't it? There's just 4 floors of Nightingales at the bottom.
Yeah, relatively simple. Yeah.
And when we're going to talk about these results, and I've looked at them, and obviously there seems a significance the fact that Nightingale is the furthest away from the plant room. Would that be fair?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at some data. This is I'll make sure you've got the right one here. This is the temperature monitoring of the outlets in Nightingale Ward.
Yes.
For the 6 months period, and includes the period when Mr. JN was in the hospital.
Yes.
Okay. So you've got the Nightingale Ward there and so on. Could I ask you to look at that and confirm to me that that is the right data?
Yes.
And is there something you would like to comment on that? Is it fine, or is it out of specification, say, from the HSE guidance?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there are some readings here that indicate that the hot water supplied at some of the outlets, anyway, in Nightingale Ward fell below the temperatures that are recommended in national guidance.
In the national guidance? You mean by that HSG 274 Part 2, do you? You're familiar with that document?
I do, and also the Department of Health's Health Technical Memorandum, HCMO 401.
Okay. Because in Department of Health's guidance, there's a higher standard than the general guidance for hot water, isn't there?
That's true, yes. The Department of Health recommend temperatures of 55 degrees C at hot outlets.
But that's a minimum of 55?
Yes, they're saying.
The national guidance for generally for office blocks
would be 50.
Would be 50. And of course, I think you'll accept that the HSG 274 Part 2 actually do recommend for hospitals the same minimum standard of 55.
That's right, 55. And that's the temperature that we aim for in the Trust. It is a guide.
It's a guide. Nevertheless, if we look at that, you'll agree with me that the hot water outlets for about a 2-month period, would I be fair in saying this, were in the 40s?
Yes. So we've got
That's
some
significantly
in the
below
mid to upper 40s. Yes.
Yes, upper 40s.
It is.
Yes.
I agree. It is below, and it's not what we were aiming for.
No. Okay. So we've got that 6-month period there. Would I ask you to have a final look at that? Could I ask you to have a final look at that and sign it and date it for me?
Certainly.
Okay. And we're going to label that document. Remember, PM1 was the notes of the patient. Could you label that PM2 and sign and date it for me? And when we do the statement, we'll admit that into evidence.
Right. Do
you understand what I'm...
Yeah, I do. That's
you do?
Fine.
Okay. Now, what I want to show you here are, there's 3 floors here of temperature monitoring data. There's the first floor, and then the second floor, and the third floor above it.
Okay.
Okay, so we put perhaps them in floor 1, immediately above Nightingale.
Yep.
And you've got the 6-month period, which was the same as I've just shown you for Nightingale.
Yes, I recognise that. Yep.
Could you have a look at those for me and advise me what you see there and anything that sticks out from there?
Well, all I would say, I guess, is that the temperature profiling is better on
Are we
floor
looking at
one.
what, floor one? Yes.
Yeah, temperatures, whilst not reaching the 55 that we're aiming for, or at least at around about 50, the majority, there's one or two, but the majority are 50 or above.
Okay. So we go to floor
Floor two.
2, that's the third floor.
Yeah, and here you can see that the temperatures are compliant with, or they're reaching the temperatures recommended in both HTM 401 and HST 274.
That's above 55 in the hot water.
That's right, and the
Okay.
same applies to floor 3, so that's the fourth floor.
Okay. Could I ask you then to sign and date that one and label it PM3 for me? And we'll admit that into evidence later. We'll pin all those together as one document.
Yeah, sure.
Now, obviously, having spoken to your colleagues and looked at the data, the monitoring data I've obtained here is the plant room calorifier temperature data.
Yeah.
I want you to have a look at that for me and tell me what you see for that same 6-month period.
Yes.
That's the outflow temperatures from the calorifier and
Yeah.
the return temperatures.
So these are the flow and return
Yeah,
temperatures.
flow
Yeah.
and return for that 6-month period
Yeah.
on a monthly basis.
Well, you can see from these data that for calorifier 1, we were experiencing problems in reaching the required flow temperature, which would be 60 degrees C on the floor
As a minimum.
as a minimum.
Okay.
Return at 55. Calorifier 2 is fine. We're getting good flow and return temperatures, but for calorifier 1, those temperatures aren't what we'd expect. In fact, we're right down in the below 50 actually on the floor.
And how many months do we see on that record that it was wrong?
Well,
or failed?
At least 2, going into sort of 2.5 months, 6 weeks.
That's
10 weeks.
10 weeks. That's a long time, if I don't mind my saying so, for a calorifier to have failed.
It is.
Come to that in a minute, if I may. Could I then ask you to confirm that that is the calorifier records as you know them to be, and would you sign and date that and
Yeah.
mark that as
Yeah, these are the
PM4,
records.
please? Thank you. Just put that over there. As I say, we'll sort this out later, if that's okay. Now, it would help me if you could explain why this all went on for so long.
The monitoring data indicated that we weren't achieving the target temperatures now are hot in some areas in Nightingale, and
You wouldn't know this on a thermostatic mixing valve, would you?
No, we wouldn't.
Because they'd be set at, what,
And
42 or something like
that's a
that.
particular challenge, yeah.
Nevertheless, you've got
And we-
sluices where
Yeah,
nursing stations where things are washed and cleaned.
that's right. And we were picking up low temperatures at the hot in the sluice, which is a unregulated hot
Yeah, so
outlet.
it's just a straight hot tap.
So that was
Yeah.
so that indicated we had a problem. And then when we checked the flow and return temperatures, the flow temperatures from calorifier 1 were down. So this was raised and discussed at the Water Safety Group meeting.
You did mention that the head of estates was a member of that committee.
That's right, yes.
Would he be the one to sort this out, per se?
Yes,
the one to
I
make sure
suppose.
that the
Yes.
equipment's working
Yeah.
properly, surely.
Yeah, and at the direction of the Water Safety Group, he was tasked with the job of sourcing, repairing the
problem.
the calorifier. Yeah,
Yeah.
we realised it was a problem with the calorifier.
Yeah,
One of the
but you
calorifiers.
Obviously, you go back up the top of there and find that the temperature's not anywhere near what it should be.
Yeah,
I mean, the main issue for me here really is this 10 weeks or more of failure. I mean, why? Can you help me on that?
Everything takes time in the NHS. You've got to appreciate that. But we actually experienced some real problems in obtaining the appropriate parts. There was more than just one part,
Okay.
and we struggled to find a supplier with that particular part. These are quite old calorifiers, so that was one of the problems.
Would I be right in saying that you've now replaced that calorifier?
We have, yes.
Okay. That happened very quickly after this case, didn't it? The
It did.
replacement.
Yes.
I mean, they're not cheap, of course, but
No. I think it's probably fair to say that the case certainly prompted sort of more urgent action from the trust.
okay. Who was aware of this in the trust?
Well,
Did you pass this up to more senior people than yourself?
I didn't, not at this stage, not at that stage anyway.
Or did you consider any other precautions?
We did. We thought about.
Because you couldn't repair it. What did you think? Well, we can't live with water coming out the taps at 45 degrees.
Well, we thought we would be able to source the replacement parts. That didn't. We weren't able to do that in the time that we thought we would do. We did discuss and consider using point of use filtration.
Is that
at
where you
outlets.
bolt a filter onto the end
That's
of the
right.
tap or
Yeah.
whatever, the shower or something like that, and that filters out the germs?
It does, and so we did consider that. We took
Why
the
didn't
decision.
I mean, as I recall, the guidance specifically mentions that as to be considered, when there are problems. The use of point of
Yeah.
end stage or point of use filters,
That's
doesn't
right,
it?
and we did.
You did consider it,
yes.
but
We decided against it because we felt that we would be able to fix the problem at source.
is it one of these things where it keeps going on? You think you're going to get the parts and they don't arrive, and
It was a little bit like that, yes.
okay, still a long time though.
Too long, yes.
Too long. Can I go to Nightingale Ward, because this is an image of a bath unit, a bathroom in Nightingale Ward. Do you recognise that?
I do, yes. That's the side ward. That's the
Is that
ensuite
The
facility that looks very much like the ensuite. I believe it to be the ensuite facility that JN used. Prior
okay?
to
He had his own room
discharge.
and his own ensuite.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Presumably because he was there for a long time. That's
Yes.
the sort of, and I'm guessing he wasn't allowed to wander around the ward, or
No,
so. Yeah.
trust policy.
Yeah.
is where we can is to provide ensuite facilities for our patients.
So this room is now full of equipment and so on. I'm presuming it's to stop people using this bath.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. I can see something there which is not right, but can you tell me what you can see there?
Yes, I think you're referring to the shower head and hose. So the shower head has become, the attachment to the wall was broken, which has resulted in...
So there was the fitting on the wall which holds the shower
That's
head
right.
with the flexible hose
that was broken.
that was broken. I'm presuming there are maintenance requests for that somewhere.
Presumably.
I'll have a word with the head of estates and see if he's got something.
Yeah.
Come to that later. Do you see that as a risk?
I think I would, yes.
You would.
I think you've got...
Dr. McDermott, I'm not expecting you to go round every room in the hospital, because there's probably 2,000-3,000 outlets.
at least.
Yeah, and to know that one's wrong. Nevertheless, I think this is significant, isn't it? Well, I think
I would agree, yes.
Could I ask you to sign and date that one and label it PM5, would you mind? There's a little space at the top, but just in the corner, that'll be fine. The significance of this then, of the loop here, of the hanging shower head and hose, we say it's a risk, just going back to this, we say it's a risk.
Yeah, I think
and I won't agree with you. Why would you think it was a risk if you got it?
Well, I think the there's always a potential where the shower head, where the hose actually is at its lowest point, that you could have water trapped in there. And that water, if it's not moved, so if the shower head's not used regularly, which it may not have been used in anger, we believed it was used for showering, but we believed it was being used during the cleaning process.
Let's make it absolutely clear, if I may. You tell me that this man didn't use his ensuite bath facility for 2 weeks.
He didn't use it, that's correct.
So nobody else would have used it, would they? Who's going to pop in and use his facility?
Well, it is regularly cleaned, and we expect our cleaning staff to flush all outlets while they're cleaning them.
Okay. We don't know whether that happened or not, of course, but nevertheless, I think it's a crucial point, and I think you and I would agree that this flexible hose, which
it could be,
would be an ideal breeding ground for Legionella bacteria because of its flexibility.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's like one of these, isn't it?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, which are banned in hospitals. Nevertheless, that's not banned, and you obviously need hoses for people to shower.